Imagine living in a small town where 8 women are brutally murdered in 4 years, and no one is ever arrested for their crimes. Imagine that these women are all young, poor, addicted to drugs, and involved in sex work. Imagine that they all know each other, and some of them are even related. Imagine that they all have secrets that could expose the corruption and violence of the local police and the drug dealers they work with. Imagine that they all die after telling someone what they know, and their bodies are dumped in swamps and canals, where they decompose beyond recognition. Imagine that the police claim they are looking for a serial killer, but they never find any evidence or suspects. Imagine that the media and the public lose interest in the case, and the families of the victims are left without justice or closure. This is not a fiction. This is the story of the Jeff Davis 8, also known as the Jennings 8, a series of unsolved murders in Jefferson Davis Parish, Louisiana. Between 2005 and 2009, the bodies of Loretta Lewis, Ernestine Patterson, Kristen Lopez, Whitney Dubois, Laconia Brown, Crystal Zeno, Brittany Gary, and Nicole Guillory were found in the outskirts of Jennings, a town of only 10,000 people. The police formed a task force to investigate the murders, but they were plagued by missteps, misconduct, and missing evidence. Some of the victims were even informants for the police, and they had information about the previous killings and the involvement of law enforcement in the drug trade and prostitution. Some of the victims also witnessed a police shooting of an unarmed drug dealer who was also connected to the case. A journalist named Ethan Brown decided to dig deeper into the case, and he uncovered a web of lies, cover-ups, and conflicts of interest.
Tons of information about specific cops and deputies and their involvement in these.
He found out that there were multiple suspects in the case, and that some of them were members of the sheriff's department or their associates. He also found out that the prosecution withheld evidence that could have helped the defense, and that the police used a discredited method called recovered memory therapy to manipulate the victims and the witnesses. He wrote a book and a documentary about his findings, and he challenged the official narrative of the case. He argued that the Jeff Davis 8 case was not the work of a serial killer, but the result of a complex conspiracy that involved the police, the drug dealers, and the victims themselves. The Jeff Davis 8 case remains unsolved to this day, and no one has been held accountable for the murders. The families of the victims are still waiting for answers and justice. The case is a tragic example of how the criminal justice system fails to protect the most vulnerable members of society, and how the truth can be buried by the powerful and the corrupt. The case is also a reminder of how the media and the public can ignore the stories of the marginalized and the oppressed, and how the voices of the victims can be silenced by the forces of evil.